Hello, and welcome to It's Our Time podcast with your host, Dalal. I am your sister, your cousin, your auntie, your friend, or nobody at all. Honey, it's all good. All is welcome here. I want to say thank you so much if you've tuned into my channel. Thank you so much for supporting, for liking, for subscribing, for sharing, and just for being here, being present, and being who you are. I hope that you are having an incredible day. I hope you are well on your journey in life, and I hope you are loving on you. That's the most important thing. So, thank you again for tuning in. This podcast is dedicated to my community, to our upliftment, to what is important to us that we need to be sharing and expanding on and highlighting in our community so we can move forward as a collective in a way that feels right for us. I want to start today's episode with taking a moment of silence for our sister Sonia Macy and the devastating loss of her life. My prayers go out to her family, to her siblings, her children, and her community, and to the her life, and her legacy that was taken far too early from her, and her being taken far too early from all of those that love her and care about her. And take a moment of silence to give you honor. I think, not I think, I know. I know that our communities are done being plagued by this kind of repetitive terror that we have seen for generation after generation after generation. And we see in this day and age, 2024, that our bodies and our lives are still taken in such tragic, inhumane ways. And I wanted to really look at this from two lenses, from a 3D physical reality world, right, in which racism exists, in which the history of it has devastated and has infiltrated itself into this country for as far as history can take us. And then the second lens of looking at it through a spiritual lens. This in the 3D world, this has been a fight of our ancestors for hundreds of years. And we have seen and witnessed the terror that our ancestors have endured. And we see it often repeated in moments like, Black History Month, which really, to me, I feel in the Western world, it's a strategy to not allow our psyche to forget how we were treated, because often when I turn on the television during Black History Month, the images that I see is not really highlighting our wealth and our history and our accomplishments and our divinity and our intelligence. It's rather showing the atrocities that our bodies have endured. It's showing me the hotels that we were not allowed. It's showing me this is colored and this is whites only. It's showing me, it's reinforcing to me what it wants me to remember about myself and in the narrative that it has written out for me as a woman of color, as a Black woman, as a Black person, to be in line with. And I really believe that in the Western world, a lot of these celebrations, Juneteenth, are really masked in maintaining our mindset and our physical and ancestral remembrance of the violence that we have endured and the role that society wants us to play in its reality in this world. It wants us to be the violent aggressors and the violent aggressors that need extreme violence to be maintained in their in the in our way of being. What's the word? Well behaved, well mannered, safe to society, right? Safe to society. Because the way that no, I would not say that. I would say because the way that the other oppressive energy does not take the time to know its own self, to see its own expression of violence, to see its own expression of living in a way that is savage, in not observing its own way of being, of living in fear and projecting that on to what and who it does not understand. Black people or people of color and our expression of life, that's presents a huge problem. And who is writing these scripts and who is writing these narratives, and how far do they go to ensure that both sides, the oppressed and the oppressor, are playing the right roles? And this Western reality and the way that it influences the global world at large and how it views Black bodies, it puts overtime in brainwashing us. It puts overtime, it works overtime to ensure that we are constantly in a state of alertness, constantly in a state of turmoil, constantly in a state of checking how we are presenting ourselves, how we are moving, and how we are integrating our beingness into the beingness that the oppressor desires for us to display. And when we don't display that in the 3D world, in our physical reality, there is the pushback is heavy. The pushback is strong. But now I recognize that our community, when we band together, when we stand together, push back as well onto that narrative. There is no way on this green, gorgeous earth that our ancestors have endured everything they have endured, and that we have the strength, the intelligence, the capability that we have, and we're going to allow another gaslighting, violent entity to steal from us, to rob us of the privilege of living life and expressing ourselves freely. That, to me, is an insanity. And it's an insanity that I know I cannot engage in. And I know that many people in my community see that. We've seen it historically. All the historical figures that have impacted us: Nina Simone, Malcolm X, Sister Soldier, you name it. Come on, we are not settling for that narrative. And we are no longer going to be accepting. And I wouldn't, excuse that word, not accepting, because that is not what we have been doing. But I would say enduring the pain that is inflicted on us and our communities. And I want to just pivot a little bit and say that from a spiritual lens, when I see how this entity, this energy of racism, this energy of hatred, this energy of projection, an inability to introspect and see oneself, the energy of perversion, right? Which has been rampant in white society and has been rampant in a culture that can even conceive of slavery and can conceive of the brutality that it can inflict on the lives of others. This kind of entity, first of all, is it doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be in your face overt like the spiritual violence we saw inflicted on our sister Sonia Macy. It doesn't have to be that overt like the violence that we have seen inflicted on Mike Brown. It doesn't have to be that overt. It is so subtle. This thing is in your everyday white person down the street, and I don't mean this to say be afraid and be closed-minded or think of everybody in one way, right? Not at all. We have the depth, we have the capacity to differentiate. But when I get a whiff, when I see that at play in you by, let's say, me opinionating something, and it's not how this culture wants me to be opinionated about it, what does the pushback look like? What does the pushback look like from a non-person, a non POC? What does that look like? That tells me a whole lot about what kind of spirits work within you and around you, and who really moves you in this world. Because what I've observed is that there is our physical body, there is our ultimate divine awareness that we are, and then there is the makeup of who we are, influenced by culture, society, history, and so on. I remember I watched this video of a fireman in the fireman home. I don't know what you call it, when they're eating their dinner and stuff, right? The firehouse. And there was a black man there, and you're watching it, and he feels, right? His spirit feels like it is one with the others who were all other white firemen. And you could see that he thought he's one of them. And in the video, there's some sort of inside joke happening with the white men around this black fireman that he is not aware of. And that's what I'm talking about, the entity that is at play spiritually that we might not see in our eyes immediately, but is there in the undercurrent. And it always makes me think about the agenda, the unseen agenda of what is presented to you in your face. And in a spiritual way, this is something that I think is important for our community to normalize talking about the two aspects, seeing the world in the 3D physical reality, but also understanding the spiritual makeup of those around us, their heritage, their history, because that has a huge impact on how somebody's spirit moves. It has a huge impact on who guides that person in their life. What kind of things do they guide them to do? What kind of worldview have they given that person? Because spirit is around us all the time. Our ancestors are around us all the time. Divine intelligence, divine wisdom is always around. And I think it's really important for our community to shed light on that. And I really want to continue talking about the spiritual and 3D aspects in the future, because it also, energy travels. Energy and consciousness is a flow. It travels, and it can find and has found its way into our communities. That's why we deal with certain things like colorism. That's why we deal with certain things like, um, you know, th- not just colorism, but self hate and trying to fit in and be be a part of a world that doesn't necessarily and I want to say that not that it doesn't necessarily anything, but be part of a world that it ain't ours. And that's okay. We like our world. We like the world that we know how to create and we know how to nurture and we know how to live and expand in. I'm not looking to fit into anybody else's world, because then I'm shrinking, I'm moving, I'm pivoting, I'm cutting, I'm slicing, I'm dicing. I'm not doing that with myself. I'm here to experience my realm, my world, my dance, my flow, my freedom. And that's what I want for my community, our dance, our flow, our freedom, and making that a strong front, making that an expansive front, and making it an immovable front. And that's really what I feel in my heart, that our community, the more we get together, the more we shed light on what we need to, the more we expand the conversations, the more we care about each other, the more that we love each other, man, we become impenetrable. We really, truly do. And it's up to us to weed through all of that gunk, weed through all of that pain, weed through all of that confusion, weed through all of that. Let's dust this house. Let's dust ourselves off and let's get this thing um aligned to who we are. We deserve it. We are worthy of it in every single way. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to It's Our Time podcast. I hope that you have taken something for your spirit, something for your heart, and I hope that you feel loved, seen, and honored, because in this space, I love, I see, and I honor you. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Take care.